So Robin, today's show is about the future of the game industry.
Yes, very exciting.
Very excited. And as you may remember, last week we had Kunal Patel on our show.
Right.
What a great
interview
guest.
with him. Yes.
So much fun.
Very
He is the founder of Orlando Game Space, Indienomicon, and other game-inspired events. And he has organized so much stuff in Central Florida. He is an icon, and people should all know who Kunal Patel is. We are building on this industry and bringing more awareness to the future of the gaming industry. And we want to know, what is that going to be like? So to start off, Robin went and interviewed people on the street, and we asked 3 key questions. Robin, what was the question?
Question was, what was the first video game you have ever played?
So we're going to take a pause so that we can hear what those answers were.
So the first game I ever played was Super Mario Brothers for the Nintendo Entertainment System.
It was called Arkanoid. It was like a bricks game with paddle, and you had to move the paddle along the bottom, and the ball bounced up and down. I think there was a arcade version of it later. I don't know what it's called.
So I'm pretty sure it was the original Super Mario Brothers on the Nintendo Entertainment Center.
Probably Pokemon Blue on the Game Boy Color.
Probably Pokemon Stadium on Nintendo 64.
So the first game, I think, was a hand-me-down Atari 2400 game. It was a game called Robotron 2084. And you were just this, I guess, a robot or something in the middle, or a guy wearing a suit, and there's an onslaught of robots and other things that probably exist in the year 2084 coming at you, and you would just have to shoot them to save yourself. So it was just it was almost like asteroids or something like that, where it just keeps progressively getting tougher.
Yeah.
So that game is probably the first one that I can remember.
All right. So Robin, we have a guest with us today, right?
We do.
Who is it?
Mr. Yoda.
Mr. Yoda. He
His
is
little hat.
inspiring here our show. So we hope our guests enjoy it. And this great screen behind us is compliments of Intern Pursuit game. And this is our movie poster. And you can play our game and play with either Breezy or Delvin in the game. And those are the aliens that you're working to get rid of.
Okay.
All right. And just a special shout out. The music that opens and closes our show and transitions, it is also from the game. And it was created by Sophie Lloyd.
Oh, okay.
She was a high school student when she did that.
Oh, wow. That's very impressive.
It is. All right. So Robin, go ahead and kick us off, and let's get started with the history. Well, wait a minute. What was the first game you ever played?
The first game I ever played was probably like Mario Kart, like the racing game. With you have to get the coins and dodge the banana peels. That I think it was definitely that one. As early as I can remember.
I have to think about what was the first game I played, and I guess it was probably, actually, in reality, probably Mario. Yeah, I would say it was probably Mario. But I've played a lot of other games, and the character that I put on most of my things that are game related are Lara Croft. I liked it because she was all about business and she kicked ass.
Yeah,
I like that.
Nice.
All right, so let's start with the history of the game industry.
Yeah, so before we get into the future of the game industry, we'll look at the history. This way we'll have a proper background.
I like that.
So although video games are found today in homes worldwide, they actually got their start in research labs of scientists, believe it or not.
You know what? They're all nerds and they love playing games.
Yes.
I bet.
And look at how far it's come. In 1952, British professor A.S. Douglas created OXO, also known as Noughts and Crosses, or as most people would refer to it today as tic-tac-toe, as part of his doctoral dissertation for research on human-computer interactions at the University of Cambridge.
That's interesting. Tic-tac-toe. I did not know that it even had this other name, Noughts and
Noughts and
crosses.
Yeah, perhaps it's like
Leave it for the British to make it
That's what
like
I was
sound so
saying.
cool.
exactly so proper. And then in 1958, William Higginbotham created Tennis for Two on a large analog computer and connected oscilloscope screen, a oscilloscope screen for the annual Visitors Day at the Brookhaven National Laboratory in Upton, New York.
Hmm. So we were playing table tennis for two in case you couldn't play it in person. I like that too. Okay.
Yes. And then followed that in 1962, Steve Russell at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology invented Space War, a computer-based space combat video game for the PDP-1 or Program Data Processor 1, which at the time was a cutting-edge computer mostly found at universities. It was the first video game that could be played on multiple computer installations, so that was Space War.
Okay, he's way too fun. He's way too fun to have on our show. We're gonna have to make him go sit across the table from us and hope he doesn't stick his tongue out at us.
Go take a break.
Yeah. Okay, he's taking a break.
And then in 1967, developers at Sanders Associates Inc., led by Ralph Baer, invented a prototype multiplayer, multi-program video game system that could be played on a television. It was known as the Brown Box. This was like the first at-home game console that was invented.
I'm going to tell you, I took this programming class over at Full Sail. I mean, I did try. I can't say I completed it, but I tried it. And the first thing that they had me do was code a box. And then there were these little particles that were inside of it, and they would bounce around inside. And when I'm hearing this, the Brown Box, it makes me think of that same thing because it was just about particles and making them move around, kind of like a pinball machine, if you think of it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe that's what it was.
Perhaps. And then in 1977, Atari released the Atari 2600, also known as the video computer system, which was a home console that featured joysticks and interchangeable game cartridges that played multicolored games, effectively kicking off the second generation of the video game console. The video game industry had some notable milestones in the late 1970s and early 1980s, such as the releases of the Space Invaders arcade game in 1978, the launch of Activision, which was the first third-party game developer which developed a software without making consoles or arcade cabinets, and that was in 1979. Other popular games that emerged include Japan's hugely popular Pac-Man.
Pac-Man.
Yes. Nintendo's creation of Donkey Kong, Mario, and flight simulator games.
That's interesting. You know what? I thought it was Mario. I actually think it was Pac-Man. I think that was the game I played.
Mario was the first one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was because when I'm, hearing you share the history of it, I went, no, it really was Pac-Man. And then I went and I played Mario. So yeah.
So then in 1983, the North American video game industry experienced a major crash due to a number of factors, including an oversaturated game console market, competition from computer gaming, and a surplus of overhyped, low-quality games, such as the infamous E.T., an Atari game based on the eponymous movie and often considered the worst game ever created.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Poor Atari. But E.T., I mean, E.T., everybody loves E.T.
Yeah.
He's kind of like Yoda. I mean, he's cute and, cuddly.
Yeah, who wouldn't like that?
I know.
The video game home industry began to recover in 1985, though, when Nintendo Entertainment System, called Famicom in Japan, came to the United States. The NES had improved 8-bit graphics, colors, sound, and gameplay over previous consoles. Nintendo was a Japanese company that began as a playing card manufacturer in 1889, released a number of important video
1889?
Yes.
That's crazy. Are you sure about that?
I am sure, yes.
Okay.
They released a number of important video game franchises still around today, such as Mario Bros, The Legend of Zelda, and Metroid. Yeah, see, they're a playing card manufacturer. So in 1889, that's more believable.
I guess so, yeah.
Yes.
Even still, I mean, that just sounds like so far back. That's amazing. Keep going, Robin.
Yes.
Wow me with this information.
Then in 1989, Nintendo made waves again by popularizing handheld gaming with the release of its 8-bit Game Boy video game device and the often bundled game Tetris. Over the next 25 years, Nintendo would release a number of successful successors to the Game Boy, including the Game Boy Color in 1998 and the Nintendo DS in 2004, as well as Nintendo 3DS in 2011. After this era of time, we were introduced to the rise of 3D gaming. The most prominent companies during this time of the late 90s and early 2000s were Sony, Nintendo, and Sega.
Oh, wow.
Mhm.
Nobody even hears about Sega anymore.
I
That's
know.
like so long ago.
Yes,
Yeah. At least Sony, people know that brand.
right. One of the first and most popular games on the computer was Solitaire.
I love solitaire.
Yeah, right.
I play that all the time.
It's a great time passer, yes. Bejeweled followed that, and Sonic the Hedgehog was released by the company Sega in 1991. Westwood Studios' video game Dune 2 was released in 1992. Mortal Kombat was a video game released that prompted the start of video game violence controversy, in which there was actually US Senate hearings due to bloodshed in the game. So that was the first time we ever heard about, there being issues with the video game violence. So that was ever since the early 90s. And then in 1995, Sony released the PlayStation selling for $100 less than their top competitor, Sega Saturn, which was a game console as well. Other popular video game releases of the 1990s were Tomb Raider, Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, and EverQuest.
Tomb Raider. That's the one. Lara Croft. I love the movie. I love the game. So
Mhm.
I'm going to say that one is another one of my real favorites. Did you ever play any of those games that you just mentioned? I'm pretty sure you weren't born then, but.
No, I've heard of Legend of Zelda. I may have played that before, like with some friends, but I didn't own that game in particular. Yeah, I've definitely heard of all of them, But yeah, I wasn't born yet.
Yeah, I knew that.
A popular game of the early 2000s was Sims, which I did play that one.
Okay, I've never played that one. So did you like it?
It was interesting. It was like you would create these characters and you could control their lives and live out their lives for them. It was just like a simulation game. Like you could just create different, realities or lifestyles. For
That
these
sounds
different characters.
interesting.
Yeah, a different type of video game. As well as Microsoft releasing Xbox game consoles. Nintendo released the Nintendo DS handheld console in 2004 with their popular game Super Mario Kart DS. Microsoft's Xbox 360, Nintendo Wii, Nintendo Switch were also very popular game consoles that were created.
Did you play with the Wii?
Oh, I did, yes.
Really?
Uh-huh.
I've never had. I don't
When that
even know
came out.
anybody that actually had that type of a game and used it. Do you
Mhm.
even know if they're still around?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know.
I don't think they make them.
Oh, I'm sure they don't make new ones, but I know it's like, there's that wave when they first came out. I
Yeah.
remember all of my friends got one. My sister and I, we both had one. It was like so many kids had it, so it was like the new trend for everyone to get one. So I'm sure
Yeah.
they don't make new ones anymore, but
No. As a matter of fact, while you're sharing this, I'm going to go look this up and see if Wii is still a working
Yeah,
game.
for sure.
Go ahead.
So then by 2009 started popular video games on social media platforms, as well as games that could be played on the iPhone, for example, games like Farmville on Facebook or Angry Birds on the Apple iPhones. I remember when everyone used to talk about Angry Birds and playing that game.
I know. I have played that game and it is very popular still.
Yeah, still, it is popular. I did not know
I
that.
am going to tell you, yeah. I
Yeah.
think kids like it a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but it's popular and you get to
Yeah.
shoot birds across the sky and
It's funny.
whatever.
Yeah.
Actually, apparently the Wii still has some play left in it, is what it says.
Oh,
Yeah,
really? Did
it's
you
still
research?
around. It sure did. Pulled it
Hmm.
up here.
Yeah.
It's still not dead. 2019.
Yeah, I'm sure they could still find a
Well,
way.
it's
to
made
keep
by
it going.
Nintendo though.
Yeah, well, they're
They're
popular,
popular.
successful.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's interesting now. Keep
Mhm.
going. Wow me with
Yes.
more info.
So, in the later 2010s, up until today's time of 2020, there were popular video games such as Minecraft, Pokemon Go, which was using augmented reality.
Did you play
Which is cool.
Pokemon? Did you collect them?
The original? I did not. I
Yeah.
wasn't. I didn't do that. I had a lot of friends that did that though. I
Mhm.
remember that time in like elementary school when
Mhm.
the kids would trade the cards and stuff. Play
Yeah.
with them.
Yeah. Kids like that a lot.
Yes. And it was so cool that they came out with the Pokemon Go's. Like you would literally take your phone and see. It was almost like the virtual reality thing, like they said, the augmented reality. Other games include, like we mentioned, Angry Birds and Fortnite. These are only a few of the most popular games over the last 10 years.
Wow. That's so hard to believe.
Yeah.
10 years and listen to all of the games that you listed out
Mhm.
and thinking about them over that 10-year span. That's 2000 to 2010. That's quite a bit. That's a big achievement. Well,
Yeah.
prior to 2000, but anyway.
Right.
Okay.
So let's take a quick break as we go back to the streets to hear people's responses to our second question.
All right. What is it?
What's the biggest evolution you have seen in video gaming so far?
So I've seen a lot. I've seen us move from 2D to 3D. But for me, the most impactful one was probably when we started doing like full PBR textures.
I would say is that gaming has enabled other industries such as film. I think gaming as a ubiquitous term is gone now. We now have real-time graphics. Gaming, what's a game, right?
I think the biggest innovation currently is a tie between ray tracing in modern consoles and probably the inclusion of solid state drives into something like the PlayStation 5.
The biggest evolution, I think, is mocap and probably ray tracing too.
I'd say in the gaming industry, the greatest innovation I've seen so far is probably how augmented reality be used to create game experiences. I don't think we've created the game experience yet, but I've seen a lot of great prototypes and advancements on how AR will be used to create a new game experience.
So, Robin, what is the biggest innovation that you've seen in video gaming?
I would say definitely the the advancement of technology so that they develop things like the virtual reality.
Virtual reality. Yeah.
Definitely, that's got to be the coolest thing.
Augmented reality too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen those. Now, I've experienced some of that where some of my classmates from Starter Studio, they were creating VR games. And so one of the downsides of playing with VR is that the goggles are super heavy.
Oh, right. I would imagine. Yeah.
And then you're like, you have the whatever the handheld things that you're doing, and you're like punching things, and everybody is like all around you, and it's kind of like watching somebody that's drunk, I think.
Yeah, like stay away from that. Like someone that's blindfolded in the pinata or something.
Exactly.
Like, stay away from them.
Exactly.
Don't.
So that's one of the things. But the augmented reality, that was really interesting too. I'm going to talk about the things that I've seen at ITSEC. I know I mentioned them with Kunal's episode, but at ITSEC, the military has the most money that they can spend on really incredible virtual reality experiences, as well as the augmented.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh my God. Of course, you're training the people that are going to protect your country. So
well, yeah,
they learn how to fly helicopters.
Oh, okay.
They learn how to do surgeries. One of the things that I also saw there was the ability to have mannequins that looked like they were real, honest to goodness, and they're like spurting blood. And I mean, that's as close to a reality that you can get, where it's not necessarily, it's not virtual reality, but you know, they're playing around with a lot of the ways to teach people things. And so some of it was about how to do surgery, and some of it was how to do, even with animals. They had lifelike looking animals that had been hurt in a war setting to help train the military with how to handle emergency, anything that could be a health related issue.
Okay.
But the other thing that they had was really cool technology where you could go in there and you were feeling like you were bouncing on the moon.
Wow.
There was like the feeling of being weightless in the room, and that was incredible. So we're going to go and fast forward to the roots of the gaming industry, which started around, like we were saying earlier, 2019, when we were getting into more of the VR and the augmented reality. And one of the things that Netflix CEO Reed Hastings had told his shareholders is he wasn't worried at all about Disney Plus or, you know, Amazon or any of the other big companies that are out there, Hulu. He wasn't thinking that's what's going to try and take Netflix down. It wasn't cable television and movie theaters. To him, the threat was the gaming industry. Because it's so interactive. Just like, think about it, right?
Yeah, that could be very like competitive towards that.
Yeah,
Very
because
entertaining and different from, you know, just, you know, watching a
just
Netflix
watching a
show.
movie.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you can be watching a movie, but you might be watching it on your phone. So you're holding it here, you're watching TV, but it's a very passive thing, is when you just sit there. But when you're actually in a game, sometimes you end up moving around more, especially if it's the VR and the augmented reality. So people move around more. And that could be, you know, a big trend in how that can impact is, what I think will happen is there's going to be this merger between, you know, videos and movies and gaming, where we can actually put ourselves into that movie and be a character in there.
That's true. I could definitely picture that in the future.
I think so. So then, according to Matthew Ball, he was the former head of strategy at Amazon Studios. It used to be what you would watch, you know, and now it's whether are you going to watch, because there's always going to be another game to play. So just how often are people choosing to reach a game controller instead of a TV remote? Well, in 2019, the gaming industry generated $120 billion in revenue in 2019. Gaming industry. And you have to remember, that's like download apps, that's all kinds of consoles, it's whatever you can play. That's what that 120 million was. Experts predicted that it would reach 200 billion within 2 years. So they're saying by, you know, 2019, obviously 2020, and then 2021, you know, 200 billion. I've actually seen estimates now that it's becoming 394 billion.
Wow.
4 times. You know, that's like crazy to me. Almost 4 times. So it said that more than 100 million viewers tuned in to watch players compete in the World Championship of the game called League of Legends.
No way.
People watching other
100
people
million
watch, watching people play games, watching
That's
people
cool,
play
though.
games.
Yeah.
Not like actually playing a real game, like, you know, your Olympics where you're competing. No, you're just playing a game on a, you know, TV, if you will, or a console.
That's so funny.
A larger haul than the telecast of the Super Bowl. That is what is unbelievable. So,
wow, even more than the Super Bowl viewers. Wow.
Yeah. And so it's projected that 2.7 billion, about 1/3 of the global population, will be gamers. This is obviously big business.
Yes, clearly.
Yeah. Do you play games now?
I don't.
You don't play any games on your phone? No solitaire, no nothing?
No, I really don't. I'm not I don't know. I like listening to music to hold my
Oh,
attention.
okay.
I don't like playing games to pass time or, just for fun. I just never liked it. It was not able
Well,
to
you
hold my
will not be
attention.
one of those big statistics of the 2.7 billion people.
No.
No, I believe that the gaming is going to move from virtual and augmented reality to holograms, where it's going to be very interactive.
Yeah.
Where you're going to be able to see, kind of like what we talked on last week's show, where you can feel like you're actually in the scene with somebody. Like you
I
could
would
be,
definitely believe that.
home in Jupiter, and I could be calling you instead of calling you and looking at it on the phone. It could be I call you and then boom, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, that's true. That'd
That's
be
so funny, right?
crazy. Yeah. It's so
I
funny
think
to
so.
think about. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that makes it more interactive because you're interacting with game characters that are also allowed to be played by another person, kind of like what you were saying with The Sims.
Yes. Except with like real people and everything. That's
Mhm.
getting very,
Mhm.
very advanced.
Yeah. So
crazy to
that
think about.
sounds a lot more appealing, I think. I think it does, at least. So because there's more, it seems more human, I think.
Mm-hmm.
After that, the industry is expected to explode, and it's not going to be looking back. And there will be a nostalgia that's in regard to old school games. So it's kind of like we were talking about, Angry Birds.
Yeah.
Like at some point in time, 20 years from now,
It'll come
20,
back.
25. Oh yeah, remember the day we played Angry Birds or Mario?
Yeah, it's like all these times in history of like where everyone plays that game or
Mhm.
gets it, and then it's like eventually those things come back. The trends can come back.
They
sometimes.
do.
Or they'll be improved. Or just a remake of something.
Yeah,
like
it's
a
kind of like how
spin-off or
we've
something.
seen movies, right?
Yeah.
Because you can see some movie, and I'm trying to think of one that's been remade many, many times. I am empty of that right now. But there are movies, and they go and do a remake of it, and you go, oh, it's like Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
I did not like the second version of Mary Poppins. I like the original Mary Poppins.
Oh, okay.
Did you
Yeah.
did you see those movies?
Yes, I believe I've definitely seen the newer version of it.
Did you like that one?
I did. I like the newer version, but I don't think I've seen the first version, so I
So
don't
see,
remember
that's
enough
what
to
I'm
compare it.
saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for you, what might be whenever they go and do a makeover, a remake of that Mary Poppins for the third time, you're going to go, no, I like the other one that I saw.
Yeah.
That's
for
what I
sure.
think it's going to be.
I know.
But with games. Okay, so what does the future hold for the gaming industry? Well, artificial intelligence is coming into play with this. And it's no longer going to be the stuff of like science fiction. It's actually lodged itself into the fabric of everyday lives. And so on the game team, we use Unreal Engine to program our game. And we talk about how we can make these characters do anything we want. And part of it is the AI, the artificial intelligence, that's actually included in being able to make games more engaging and interactive.
Wow.
So we're going to talk about that, after this next little spotlight. But I just want to finish this one little sentence here. So you just have to think about it where AI is seen in our everyday life. It's just like when Gmail's Smart Compose, you'd be over here typing and then it just starts taking the words and it's finishing your sentence for you.
Right.
To self-driving cars, they make these cars and they use AI so that it can actually sense things that are around it and also become, more engaged with the human that's actually driving it.
Really?
To pick up, more of your preferences.
That's gonna be crazy the day that we see, all the cars driving themselves and humans don't have to.
Well, they're
take
laying
control of
back
the
in the
cars.
back of the cars.
Yeah.
More than I will not do that.
Me neither.
Yeah.
It's like the human population is getting too lazy now with this.
I
It's
think
like I
so.
think we should still have to drive our own cars. I don't like the
Yeah.
self-driving cars. It's just
Yeah.
scary because it's like then you're really gonna start to see like the technology take over completely.
I think so.
It's gonna turn into like one of those scary movies or something.
Yeah, it's like, why are we even here?
But
right?
it's a very cool innovation though, of course.
So video games are not going to be an exception, but
No.
let's go back to the street and ask people our third question. Robin, what was our third question?
It was, what do you think the future of gaming will be like in 5 years?
It's so hard to think about that,
Yeah.
but let's see what these people have to say.
My dream is to be able to have Maya like open on a table in front of me so I can start modeling in 3D like Tony Stark in Iron Man. I've been so jealous for that ever since Iron Man 1. I'm like, I want that. I want that thing that he has.
And then the thing I'm most excited about is actually right now how I'm using that technology to make the tools that we're building. We are building, it's a plugin called Carbon for Unreal, and it's a real-time stage lighting visualizer for concerts, events, and stuff like that.
And I think what you're going to see in the next 5 years is going to be jump in, jump out kind of games where it's already happening now, but where you start a game, you immediately exit out, jump into another game within less than a second or two, and then back and forth without having to wait for load times.
Future evolution will probably be like super immersive AR, VR gameplay style.
And then I think the next 5 years of the game industry is really going to be about figuring out how do you get game technology into different markets. Virtual reality and augmented reality are going to enable not just new entertainment experiences, but new experiences for education and healthcare and attractions and all sorts of avenues that games are going to be a lot more than just sitting at a console. It's going to be everywhere that you go.
It's the whole online internet connected game where you realize that there's other people on this planet that are also playing this game and you could play against them. I feel like that definitely moved the needle forward. And you know, it's a case of we've gone through so many platform shifts, at least in my life, where, you know, hey, in the 80s when I was born and I kind of grew up a little bit, it was, you know, computers were just coming out. So just even being able to play a game was awesome. Then in the 90s, the internet came out. So now you could be connected and playing games. And then in the 2000s, you know, mobile phones and tablets started coming out. So like now there's more casual games and, you know, again, like more connectivity. And now moving into the 2020s, where there's now augmented reality and virtual reality, things are more immersive. And like, it's no longer, hey, you're playing this thing and you're seeing this character in front of you. You can literally be inside of the virtual video game world itself. So it's like,
Oh my gosh, you
Yeah.
know what just came to my mind is, okay, so COVID is something that's made it so we're all distant from each other socially. We're definitely not demonstrating that right now. However, there's all of this distance and we live in a bubble. But with augmented reality, we can actually all be together.
We can all be together.
Even with COVID.
yeah. So I technically, maybe we can't be physically together with all the people like at conferences or in classrooms or things like that as normally. But I mean, you could have a virtual room where somebody is from Europe, Asia, North America, and they're all there in the same room. And, you know, maybe our senses would have this suspension of disbelief a little bit, like that, like, okay, I am seeing that there's another person. Forget that maybe they're a little bit cartoony or there's an avatar of them or whatever, but I physically am feeling that there's a 3D person in front of me.
Yeah.
And that person is somebody that's maybe thousands of miles away. And that feeling of being together, that's
Yeah, I
like,
think that they'd be able to do that with either the feeling of some type of cold or heat or something.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But I think some of that would end up being embedded in us to some extent.
I think it's, you know,
And smell. you
yeah,
know.
you know, I don't know if any of the viewers out there watch Black Mirror. It's a show on Netflix that's like looks at the dark side of technology.
Yeah.
Like, where can technology go wrong? But it's a case of like more and more and more we're getting melded together with technology.
We are.
And, you know, I would say we're almost like cyborgs at this point, because, you know, you think about like, hey, I'm wearing an Apple Watch and I'm going to have, you know, Apple AR glasses and I'm going to have my cell phone with me.
Oh, eventually they'll be embedded, I think, into our eye or into our brain or into our ears. It's all going to be something that's
I mean, Apple
being
Pods,
embedded.
right? Like, so popular now, like you can hear things and you don't have to have your phone next to you. And yeah, you're right there. I know this, that people are working on like augmented reality contact lenses. So in a sense, like we are all going to have the superpowers, I guess, of Batman and RoboCop, that was really just fictional characters. We will have, without being bulletproof, we will basically have all their
Mhm.
abilities.
Mhm.
And that's kind of crazy to think.
Yeah.
And yeah, we will enter into this place where we're half in the virtual world and half in the physical world. And it's going to be super entertaining, super scary, super useful, all at the same time.
I could not agree with you more. One of the things that I was thinking is, I love Star Trek. I think you either love Star Wars or Star Trek. I like them both.
I like them both.
Yeah, I don't have, one over the other.
Mhm.
But with Star Trek, how they would teleport.
Yeah.
And I love that. Do you think that that's going to be happening anytime soon? Because I actually think it will.
I think it will.
I think that they've been experimenting. They've been blowing up the zucchini or the watermelons or whatever. They start with that to see if they can move it from one place to the other. But
Yeah.
I think it's actually going to take
So
off.
I think there's going to be two different ways to do this. I think there's the true life of, using every bit of our knowledge of physics to actually transport molecules from one place to another.
Mhm.
I think eventually we will get there. It sounds crazy, but just like you, I
Yeah,
think,
I think it's going to happen.
and Star Trek is a great indicator of the future. When you think about what existed in the 60s and 70s and then the
And think
90s,
how progressive they were at that time.
Star Trek communicators. What is that? That's cell phones.
Yeah.
What think about all the different toys and tools that you saw in Star Trek. Almost all of them exist today.
Yeah. Not teleporting yet.
Not
But that could
teleporting.
be the tube, where they put you in the tube and then you go. I think I've read about this too, or somebody told me about it actually, where you would go from Orlando to Miami. You could be there in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Because you're putting yourself in some type of a giant vacuum tube. And I'm going, that sounds terrifying to me.
Yeah. But that tech existed with the drive-through bank tellers, right? Like the
For
little
real.
that thing. And I do think that in terms of teleportation, maybe it's a case of virtual teleportation. So in Star Trek, there was something called a holodeck,
Yeah.
where you would go into it and you would have a simulation, a 3D simulation happen around you, so you could kind of go through the
remember.
motions of that.
Mhm.
So that, I believe, is going to happen. We're almost kind of there with
Mhm.
AR and VR.
Mhm.
And then in terms of teleportation, think of it this way. There's a meeting or something like that happening in London, and they have sensors. Maybe it's laser, LiDAR based, 3D sensors that are placed in the room. So just like today, we have maybe a camera in front of us for a Zoom call. Imagine that there's 3D sensors all around, somewhere in the crown molding of the room.
Mhm.
And the same thing exists in your home office here in Orlando or in New York or wherever. And so all of a sudden you have these two sets of sensors in two different rooms that are all scanning everything in 3D. And all of a sudden, you are 3D transported over to, the meeting in London, and the London people are transported to your room right here in Orlando. And it's 3D and it feels like you're there and they're over here. That is going to be next level Zoom, I guess, but I see that happening, and that's like a virtual form of teleportation. And I see that happening all over the place. It's almost like, there'll be a better version of in Star Wars, to now hop over to that universe, the whole help me Obi-Wan, the little
Mhm.
blue hologram that you saw there. I think there's going to be that version, but even higher quality and better.
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah. I agree.
So I that part of teleportation will be here now. Real physical based teleportation, maybe another couple 100 years.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
I could be wrong.
100 years. I sit here and I think, I don't know. Everything. I'll wake up in the morning and go, oh, look, there's a new update on some social channel. Oh, they just changed this on YouTube, and I'm sitting here going, what just happened? And you're trying to navigate the dashboard and figure out some of those intricacies of using the platform. But then there's also other things that, I get a lot of emails and it say, oh, well, start looking for this. And we do have augmented reality here and you can do it. That again is one of the reasons why I love going to ITSEC,
Mhm.
because you get to see the latest stuff that's out there.
Yeah. The thing is, like, this is something I heard a while back. I don't even remember who told me this, but I definitely, like, say it wherever I can. It's that the future is already here. It's just not widely distributed.
That is true.
And places like ITSEC is where you can see a bit of the future. It's just not there readily accessible to everybody.
Yeah. So they had this one last year, one experience so that I would be able to know what it was like to be inside of the helicopter. So I step onto their platform and it's already vibrating like, the engine of a helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going, holy cow, you can feel that. And then there's this giant movie screen that's like all around me. And it starts, the movie, I'll call it a movie, but the video, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
it starts. And then when it's beginning to, like, the helicopter's moving around like this, I'm going, holy cow, I'm like moving. And I wasn't even paying attention to the fact that it was really feeling very immersive.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was some wind that was blowing on me also. So they made it very experiential.
Yeah. There's a scientific way to look at, like, how we behave.
Yeah.
And there's the, thinking of it almost like as like magical of, we are animals and we respond to we have a response to stimuli. And if enough of our senses are touched on, our brain, no matter how much we know that this is not real, will begin to just say, hey, I'm there. This is what I'm experiencing. And when you can do that, you just kind of forget. It's just like in video games, right? Like, that this is not real, but you can get lost. Just like you can get lost in a book,
Mhm.
you can get lost in a great movie, you can get lost in a video game, and you can envision that you are that hero or that heroine, and you are fighting this dragon, or you are saving the day, or you're working in a team, you're going through these dungeons, whatever. Like, you can get lost in that game. Well, imagine if it just got more immersive than that. Like, there's no reason why we couldn't get, like, lost in good ways and bad ways in VR and AR. And that means that we're just going to entertain ourselves and learn things and educate ourselves more immersively. And that's where it's all headed, is we're gonna merge into this virtual world.
So that was very interesting. And there was such a diversity of people and what they thought what the future would look like. So
Right.
I did the research on this side of it, but let's go ahead and see where everything begins to intersect. So as I was mentioning, AI has been expressed in the gaming industry for decades. Most prominently in non-playing characters. They call them NPCs. So in our Intern Pursuit game, we have NPCs, non-playable characters, but they still move around. They can walk around. They don't necessarily talk, but they aren't action characters. Some of them can talk, but they aren't necessarily action characters that are actually fighting the aliens.
Okay.
They're in the headquarters. So it would be like you and I being in the office at the Intern Pursuit headquarters. And we might be non-playable characters, but we're still moving around the office. They don't just sit at a desk, is the point that I'm saying there.
Right.
Anyway, excuse me. The most prominent, so it's like the colorful ghost in Pac-Man or the innocent bystanders in Grand Theft Auto. I did play Pac-Man. I know what that one is, but I have not played Grand Theft Auto. Did you?
I believe I did play that one somewhat. You know what? Those are the games that I actually enjoy playing the most, for like the action and adventure type games, like Grand Theft Auto was obviously, it's like more of like bad conduct
You're
type
stealing,
stuff.
you're stealing stuff, yeah.
But it's like, it's not real, so it's fine to do that in a video game. But that was the stuff those were the games that I found to be the most fun to play. Or other games like you mentioned, there were some apps that I would have on my phone, like games where it was like similar to Grand Theft Auto, like stealing cars or running away from other people. That was fun to me. I was like a younger teenager, probably like 16 or something like that.
Yeah.
like
that sounds
at
like
all
what
ages,
somebody would
yeah.
do. Yeah,
Mhm.
I agree. So anyway, let me see where I was, where I have left off. So characters like these are typically programmed with what designers call a finite state machine In the plainest possible terms, this means that the NPC follows a script or an if-then statement. If the game is on, then chase Pac-Man. The script might say, and if Pac-Man eats a power pellet, then run away from him.
Mhm.
And that's one of the things that you actually see is that, the programmers are thinking through, well, what would the player, the game player, what would they like to see happen? So that there's, an if then. If, I pull out my weapon to go and kill one of my aliens, maybe the alien starts running towards me. What's
Yeah.
my reaction?
Right.
And then what if the alien runs away? What's my reaction? So that's
Mhm.
that's what they're really talking about there.
Okay. Yeah.
So in recent years, game makers have taken a more sophisticated approach to NPCs. For example, some are now programmed with a behavior tree. And what that means, it enables them to perform more complex decision making, such as, the talking that we were talking about earlier, where there's more of a, Robin, what do you think about this muffin? And then
Yeah.
you can actually say, yes, I like the muffin, or no, I don't like the muffin.
Okay.
Decision making, small things,
Right.
not anything that's going to change anything.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that we have in our game is our characters, our interns, go through a portal and they turn into a superhero that fights alien. Well, you can
Mhm.
decide if you want them to go through that portal and then have a different type of an experience, or they might go away from the portal and do something different.
Huh.
So
Okay.
different approaches, but
Yeah.
it's fun.
Mm-hmm. Makes it more interesting.
So this is one of the quotes that I had pulled out, and it has said that the author had said that they could see a future within 10 years where it's going to be a thoroughly mixed reality headsets or looking at AR through our phones. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I would
augmented
believe that, yeah.
reality right through our phone. We'll have the concept of, oh, I hang out occasionally with this non-playable character who remembers me and who I have a conversation with. So instead of talking to a person, I'm
Mhm.
sitting here confiding in a non-playable character
Yeah.
and I think that's now actually, because this phone, we already know that the phone can collect all of our
Oh,
conversations,
yeah.
right?
It's listening. Yeah.
So how is it going to be any different than, instead of, feeling like we're being spied on,
Mm-hmm.
we would be talking to a non-playable character. Well, how is that going to change how we interact with people?
Yeah, it's gonna drastically change it. I think for the worse. Like people are they start losing, social skills, especially like the younger generations.
Mhm. But what the programmer is supposed to do is to begin to make predictions on, well, if you're crying, oh, don't cry. They would say something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's
Mhm.
that. And then there's AI and content generation. Artificial intelligence isn't just part of the gameplay experience, it's part of the game making experience now. And for
Mhm.
several years, designers have been using AI to help them create games. AI can create game assets like trees or buildings, and the designers don't have to have all of these drawings and work that takes so much time.
Right.
It actually can make it happen so much faster for them now. So
Mhm.
they can offload work into the computer, and by using just a simple technique called content generation, it actually replicates it and makes it bigger. And
Wow.
they are doing that in software development too, where they're building code blocks and you don't even have to know how to code.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
You don't
So
even
you're
need the
able to say,
skill.
I want my software platform to make it possible to create multiple responses. So
Mhm.
they can do that. They can build
Yeah.
that.
Now they have the ability.
So then there's AI and analytics. And that's, AI may not yet be up to the task of creating entire high quality games from scratch, but it can certainly provide valuable feedback to the game's designers who can then fine tune the creations to fly. And it's really common.
Mhm.
So the quote that comes up again is This one's by Ken Candaker. Said games are so much about what actually creates a compelling experience that people will keep coming back to it. It's basically what AI is in service of. So I think that's really significant because what game developers are doing is not only are they paying, to me, it's like watching a human behavior.
Mhm.
And you're sitting here going, okay, I want the person to go left, but to make them go left, I have to put something in front of them.
Yeah.
You know, it could be an alien, it could be a block, it could be a tree, it
Right.
could be an avalanche that falls down. But every time I interact with one of my games, I choose something that's either right, left, or center. And you know, it begins to know my mannerisms and my
Yes.
preferences.
Uh-huh.
And then it begins to make it so it's predictable as to what it is that I'm going to do.
Okay.
I think
Mhm.
it's terrifying.
Yeah. It's spooky.
It is. So big companies like Facebook, Google, Microsoft, and Sony, they're investing heavily in the virtual reality gaming industry. And so then for decades, virtual reality has been teasing, gamers with the prospect of a fully immersive experience, but the technology has yet to deliver on that promise. So when it comes to VR, like I said earlier, we have these big clunky type of contraptions we have to wear on our head, but there was also Google, it was like cardboard, and it was like you could put it on your phone. It was a way to make virtual reality. Google goggles, I think.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I think that's
I've
what it
heard
was.
Google I've heard of that.
Yeah. And so I
Huh.
could actually put that on my phone and I could see something without having to wear the headset.
Okay.
That
would
was
be
fun.
more accessible.
Yeah. So there are promising developments on the horizon, but first, a few challenges still need to be addressed. So what's holding them back is, again, it's going back to the VR headset. It's pretty heavy and, nobody wants to be wearing that for a long period of time. And it's not comfortable because it's got a lot of things that you got to strap on, around your head.
Mhm.
And then you get sweaty and, it's just like, I'm tired of it. Kind of like living in COVID.
Yeah.
So the
Totally.
experience chafes against that mode of playing, which is typical of gaming enthusiasts, spending hours comfortably sunk into a couch,
Mhm.
whereas, VR hardware can't align with the actual preferences of the gamers. It's causing them to stand up and move around, which personally I think is a good thing. People
Mhm.
need some exercise.
Yeah, I know, right? Most people do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which was the advantage of the Wii game. People
Yeah.
were exercising.
Exercising while doing virtual sports,
I know.
basically.
They still need that.
Uh-huh.
So companies slim down the VR headsets and the price points come down. Now it's going to save early adopters and tech enthusiasts. They're going to, probably like it. But
Mhm.
some will say no, they don't like it. I think the future of the VR is more through social VR. And that's different because when you think about what virtual reality is, it's very solitary. You
Mhm.
put the goggles on your head, and then you're interacting with things that you see, but you really are not interacting with another
With
person.
others, yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's your own experience, not necessarily with others. I'm sure it
Exactly.
will emerge into be so you can interact with others eventually.
And so that's what they're calling social VR, social
yeah.
virtual reality. And it's supposed to be not just the solitary side of it, but interacting with other people. So companies are busy making VR more consumer friendly, and it's only a matter of time before the weight and the price of the headset goes down. But even those hurdles are still there. They still need to make it so it's not so isolating. It's actually a way to interact with others.
Mhm.
I think it goes back to the holograms that I was talking about.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So hyper reality, that's the next thing that's up here. We have to understand what social VR is. It only needs to look at the one void, a company that is specializing in hyper real experiences or location based entertainment, LBE is
Mhm.
the acronym, and it blends it together into virtual reality and physical reality. And this is how it works. Players gather in a physical space and like the inside of a warehouse or strap-on helmets and computers that double as backpacks, they proceed to participate at a virtual activity together.
Interesting.
You know, I'm thinking it's like Jumanji.
Yeah, right. It sounds like
That's what I think.
Mhm.
So anyway, they get together. It's a activity and it's a mission. But unlike the typical VR experience where everything takes place inside the goggles, hyper reality game players will notice that they see in their headsets what they see actually corresponds to the physical space in the room.
Well, that's good. Yeah, it would have to. So they're seeing certain things in the that are in the room, or no? It's just according to the spaces.
So here's the example. So they can run around and play, duck, goose, and then just like run
Oh.
around. And in some cases, they
Okay.
can even reach for a virtual object and feel it
Huh.
in the form of a strategically placed physical prop.
Okay.
So if I'm in there and I want to go and see if I can touch, let's say, a tree,
Yeah.
right? There's going to be something that's in the room because I've walked over to that space and I'm touching it. So
Mhm.
now it becomes that more hyper real experience.
Yeah. Very interesting.
So
Mhm.
I think that for a lot, to me, it's like putting blinders on, right?
Yeah.
Except, you're seeing with blinders, you put it on and you see in your head. But with the virtual reality, you're seeing what you think is in the room, but there's some things that are in there just to make it would be like our green room, right?
Yeah.
Right now we're in a green room and we have our background on it, but that's not what's real, right? We know
Right.
that. We're really not in here. So it's something, I'm going to use that as a very small example. Anyway, I think that for a lot of people, it's going to be their first exposure to VR, and it'll be like things like a theme park, what it's like to go on a roller coaster or be on a Ferris wheel, which is terrifying to me. My brothers would shake it. So,
Oh my. Yeah. That's terrifying.
yeah, I don't
Yeah,
ever
no.
want to, I don't want to do that in a virtual reality
Oh
experience.
God, no.
Because what if it goes upside down?
Oh no.
But they're not necessarily going to go and follow that up and start putting headsets on in their homes. So we are at the end of our show, but I know I want to give a special shout out here. Thank you, Robin, to our production team.
Yes.
You've been here. You've been like manning the show with me. Thank you to Ian Castro, our video and audio expert. He is now no longer an intern. He actually has graduated past that. He is video production.
Congratulations.
To Ian Castro, who's graduating. And then to Ashley Gonzalez, who's just joined us as an intern. She's going to be taking over some of the editing of the shows coming up here. Well, anyway, everybody, we want to thank you, our listeners, and we look forward to seeing you again very soon. Take care.
Yes, goodbye.
Oh, and subscribe. Subscribe
Of
to
course.
us.
The Intern Whisperer is brought to you by Cat 5 Studios, who help you create games and videos for your training and marketing needs that are out of this world. Visit Cat 5 Studios for more information to learn how Cat 5 Studios can help your business. Thank you, Cat 5 Studios.